Hello to everybody who is joining us and people watching us in the future. It's Louise and I here. So just in case you don't know me, I am Sarah Gio. I am an acting coach. I specialize in Shakespeare. And because I specialize in Shakespeare, I often end up also specializing in drama school auditions because people come to me panicking about their Shakespeare. So Louise is in a sort of similar position, aren't you, in that you are an acting coach and you also end up helping a lot of people with drama school auditions. Is that kind of right? Tell me about your acting practice, your coaching practice.
Massively.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I have been in the industry for over a decade now, but I've also been teaching at drama schools for about six, maybe seven, at various ones in Scotland and in London before when I lived in London. And since COVID and everything kind of shutting down, reopening, and then the kind of landscape of auditioning changing, I was like, need to kind of get in here because it feels like there's so much gatekeeping that happens that, people pay loads of money to go to these auditions. They kind of gear themselves up for it. They go in and they don't actually know what to expect because it's not available.
Right.
Like
It's
nobody
it's a
says.
mystery, right? There's this kind of veil where it's like, we will not talk about this. And I've said to people, I think one of the reasons I think the schools don't talk about it is because it's hard to articulate. They can't necessarily say we're looking for XYZ because it might change from year to year. And yeah, like it might change in terms of like they might look at a cohort and be like, well, that's not anything like what we described, but we just think they're an amazing group of people that are going to thrive. Um, but also, I also think sometimes when people have been within an institution for a long time, they forget what it's like to be on the outside. I've worked in an organization where people have been there for 25 years and they genuinely don't remember what it's like to come in fresh and be like, what is this? And so people auditioning for drama school are like, it's a mystery. Why isn't it clear? But it's because
Yeah.
of these kind of maybe some unintentional and some intentional mysteries that happen, and it changes. And we were just saying before we hopped on the call that every year feels different. What are you feeling like this year? Have you noticed any particular shifts this year that you're like, oh, that's interesting, in the schools or your students?
Do you know what as the years have gone by, I mean, I remember back to when I was auditioning for drama school and I had no idea whatsoever. I was stabbing in the dark, having
Yeah.
no understanding. And what I'm actually finding in a really positive way is, and I think this is, new generations harnessing the power of the internet that, wasn't available as much when I was auditioning because I'm old. Um,
Yeah.
but of actually doing the research, actually figuring out, oh, there's this course and there's this opportunity and there's this here and that, and they do this and that means this. And you're like, oh
Mm.
my gosh, you're actually so much more prepped and making decisions about your future and where to audition and why that I had no understanding of way back in the day. You were just kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll just audition there because my mate is or because I've
Right.
heard of it. Like I hadn't heard of RADA. I mean, I
Yeah.
must have been living under a rock, but I'd never heard of RADA.
You'd be
And
surprised.
therefore didn't audition there because I didn't know.
Yeah.
But it
Right.
feels in a really positive way, the years as the years go by, each new audition season, the people who are auditioning are really harnessing the power of doing that research ahead of time. So they're actually coming in a lot more equipped. So and I'm finding that the majority. So when you've got people that don't do the research, it really exposes them in a massive, massive way. If you haven't looked into the school, if you haven't read the play, if you all of that kind of background stuff, if you're not doing it, there's a ton of people that are, and you're going to look like a fool.
That is so interesting because I'm always like, uh, I remember you had a reel on Instagram being like, all the drama schools are different. And then that's what I'm always talking about. It's like what you'll find that works is when you find a drama school that has kind of, there's an alignment, there's a mutual beneficial situation where they values the similar things to you, and it's not about like impressing them, it's about, well, they're interested in like this kind of work and you're also interested in that kind of work, and that's when it's like it usually, that's when people start to get into drama school, when they go like, that school would be good for me, not just because it's a good school and I've heard of it and, you know, like it's supposed to be the top school, but actually like I want to go there because they do this particular thing. And that's,
Exactly.
it's so nice that you're seeing a lot more of the research. I've been really like, I really push people, and I feel like it's still, to me, still too much of a mystery, too much, like not enough understanding of how to do that research. So I mean, to turn that back to you, if you had a student that was like, well, I mean, I don't want to be the person that doesn't do the research, what do I look for? What would you tell a student to like research about schools?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always a big thing that we say, do the research. I'm like, what does that mean? So what I always say to do is, first of all, make the decision, do you think training is for you or not? Because there are loads of different avenues that you can go down, because there is not one size fits all to get into the industry. So, you know, actually think about, where do I want to take my career? And if that is, you know, I want to be in a Marvel movie, nothing wrong with that. I respect it entirely. Do you have to go to drama school for that? No. Do you have to go to the gym? Probably. Yeah. It's thinking about, okay, well, what is it that I want to do, and how is that going to get me trajectory wise to the goal? And if you come to the decision, yes, I do want to go to drama school, figure out what schools are actually in alignment with you, like you said. So you've got to actually get really, really clear on what you want to get out of it.
Mm.
Are you somebody who really appreciates things like physical theatre or dance? Then you're going to be actually searching for schools that cater to things like that. If you want something that's a lot more ensemble based or devising based, because you were part of a theatre school that did that and that really buzzed you up, there are schools that cater to that. If you're looking for something that is going to send you off to the National Theatre or off to the RSC, or, you know, those really kind of like high-end legitimate things, you're going to be looking for something that's a little bit more traditional, and you're going to look for those kind of heavy hitters, and it will be there in the words that they use on the website, about, they outline what they do year on year, but it's for you to actually go, what is it that I want to get
Yeah.
out of my training? Because it's not a case of, because training does not ensure you success, it ensures you tools. That's all it does. It might, and the tools might come in the form of knowledge that you acquire. It can be the amount of contact hours that you have that really kind of like helps you stretch out and implement all of those skills. It could be the opportunities or the links that they have to the industry, through a showcase, or through, you know, casting directors who they're affiliated with, or workshops that they run with industry professionals. Going out into the profession, if you're wanting to network a lot more, there's particular schools that cater to that, very much so. So it's for you to kind of do that. And if you have no concept of what schools are actually out there, watch TV, go to the theatre, figure out what actors they are, find their names, Google them, find out where they went to school. And if that's a person that you want a similar kind of career trajectory, find out where they studied, if they studied, what their route into the industry was. And if they studied, read up on the school and get realigned with, what is it that I want to get out training? They went to that school and that gave them that. And then you're going to start to kind of come up with a portfolio of schools that you actually want to apply to.
I think that's really interesting. And I find something I found come up a lot with students is there's this apologetic thing that comes up when I go like, okay, well, I mean, what TV shows do you like watching? Like, because I'll say to them like, what kind of work do you want to make? And they'll be like, I don't know. And I'll say, okay, well, what do you like to watch? What kind of stories do you like to see told? What kind of styles? What kind of genres? And they're kind of like, oh, I guess this, but like, I kind of, I'll do anything. Like, there's this kind of I'll do anything thing that happens for like,
It's a lack
yeah,
mentality, a
yes, the
scarcity
like,
mindset of
yeah, the
going, I
fear.
will do anything, I just
I'll
want to
do
be
anything.
involved.
Yeah, and it's the worst place to start from. And you can see it in I see it a lot in the personal essays, the personal statements, where people are going like, oh, you know, because they don't want to come across as arrogant, I think. So they don't want to be like, I'm going to do this, you know, but then because they don't know how to find that really healthy middle ground, they end up kind of then apologizing. Oh, I know it's hard, but I really think I could do this. And that's not positive either, because now we feel like that you don't trust yourself. So you have to find that healthy middle ground that's like, well, I want to do this kind of thing. And that's not arrogant. I think just to sort of, for people that are listening, remembering it's not arrogant to have a preference about a kind of art you want to make. And that if
Do
you're
you know
not
what?
sure, like, consume art. And that means watching,
Oh
but go to the
God,
theater,
yes.
go to the theater.
You have to, I mean, I made a YouTube video a couple of days ago that's going to go out soon
Yeah, great.
about this idea of personal statements and what you should be including in personal statements. And for me, and it's something that I didn't do, and that really, really scuppered me, not just in the personal statement, but the actual execution of it when I was studying, is if you take acting out of the equation, say you were going to go to university and you wanted to be a lawyer, you have some kind of understanding about what
Yeah,
you wish to do with that degree. You've got
right.
an avenue that you're wanting to go down. Maybe you want to go into criminal law, maybe you want to go into family law, maybe you speak 5 languages and you want to join a massive firm that you get to go all over the place. Maybe you want to do something that's with charity organizations. Maybe you want to do, be a lawyer representative for Amnesty International. Like, there's so much scope. But there are not people going into law school going, oh, I know it'll be hard, but I'll do anything. No one
Whatever
does
you want.
that.
Yeah,
Whatever you want. But it is this
yeah,
idea that there are way more actors going into the industry than there are jobs. There are way
yeah,
more people applying to drama school than there are places. So we're like, if I am amenable, if I
yeah.
am flexible, if I give, and I don't, demand anything, then you'll give me a place. As
Which is not
opposed to what we're
true.
actually looking for
Yeah,
is for people to have a bit
passion,
more of a plan.
preference. Yeah, passion,
Yeah,
preference,
preferences
plan.
about what they want to do.
Yeah,
Yes,
there
exactly.
we go. We've
Like,
made our tagline.
is it I had a coaching client, and I asked exactly the same question that you did. What do you watch? And kind of sheepishly, he ended up saying, I'm watching Skins at the moment. And I was like,
Great.
brilliant. That's a
Like, that's
great,
perfect.
it's a great TV show, fantastic writing, great acting, and it's well within your current casting range. There's nothing wrong with that. Why are you holding
Yeah,
back saying that?
yeah,
Because we think that it's not high art,
yeah.
and that drama schools have this stuffy understanding that unless you are doing the Ibsens, the Chekhovs, the Shakespeares,
Mm,
then it's not
mm,
worth anything.
yeah.
When in fact, you're predominantly going to go out and do screen stuff anyway in the first kind of outing, and then you can branch out into theatre for the most part.
Mm,
There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, like, I'm just pleased that you have a passion and an
yeah,
excitement about something. You found something and gone, I really like that. That's the kind of work that I want to be making. Because we don't want people just coming in saying, oh, I'll do anything.
yeah. And
It's like
just,
it's like trying to date. You're not going in to a
that's what I
date
always
going,
say.
do you know what? It is though. You're not going into a first date going, oh,
Yeah.
anyone will do.
This is what I say about the drama schools as well, with the questions, like interview questions, when I think the way that people respond to interview questions with the why do you want to come to our school? And I think that's like a dating question. People answer it like, because people will say, oh, I've just always wanted to be an actor, and I really think that training will be good for me. And I'm like, but that does not make the drama school feel special. You have to think that, like,
No,
a date, you have to be like,
I've
I want to
always
date.
wanted to be a wife, and I
Yeah,
think that marriage will be good for me. Come on.
it's about, you have to make that connection of like, well, I want to come here. This is what I love about you, and like, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, the analogy is so funny that the analogies that are coming up, I use similar analogies for dating, but also the business thing. I say with the like, when you're preparing for, when you're thinking about drama schools on which ones you want to apply to, and you're putting your monologue choices together and all this kind of stuff, that thinking about it, like, often what people do with drama schools is that it's almost like they're interviewing for a position, and they're going in there, they've been asked to like showcase their computer skills, and they like write them a short story. You're like, well, that's not what we do here. You might be great at writing short stories, but this is not what we do. Did you not read
Yeah.
what our company does? Like, why are you here? And I think that that's what happens a lot with the drama schools, is this kind of like, they don't know what the school does. People, like, there are actors going in there and they have no idea what the program really is, and that is a problem. The course that I went through, the program that I went through, was a contemporary course, and it was quite new, and it had a lot of changes, and there were a lot of people that auditioned thinking it was more traditional, and then when they started, they were like, what is this? And then we had a lot of devising, and they were going like, I just thought I was going to be doing Shakespeare and Chekhov and doing my Stanislavski. And we did like a semester of Stanislavski, and then they're like, all right, Meyerhold, and and doing all the crazy stuff. And people were like, people dropped out because they were really like not happy with it. And I think that that's one of the reasons that I'm really, because I talk to some of the students that I help get into schools, I'll talk to them like after they finish a program, and how often it's maybe not what they expected. It's maybe they were happy to get in, but there's a lot of things about drama school that's really hard and eye-opening, and people come out and are kind of disenfranchised and feeling like they don't want to go on. And I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because you have been through this, and I know you kind of went on a journey, following your experiences. So what do you think about that situation, about people kind of going through and then being like, oof, drama school was not what I thought?
There's so much variation, but I mean, my journey in comparison to other people's journey, it's very different. So from my point of view, I auditioned for drama school a year after I left high school. It was my first time auditioning, and I got in first time around. Brilliant, great. So I didn't have to kind of take too much of a gap and analyze it too much in terms of, do I want to train? Do I not want to train? It happened to be a round peg in a round hole, because I loved my training. I wouldn't trade my training for the world. It was just an amazing time. I moved to London. I met some amazing people, had amazing experiences, and ended up that I was actually pretty good at what I did. So I was like, this is great. But then it got to third year, and third year was tough, because what I loved about training and what I wanted to get out of training was that lovely safe bubble of just learning the craft and just creating and exploring and being curious and all this kind of stuff. And then third year comes around and it's marketing. And you were just like, I am a commodity and I am going out into the industry and this is horrible and I don't want to do this and I'm very, very scared. And I just went, no, I'm leaving, because I wasn't fully equipped in my own mind to actually go out, branch out into the industry at that particular time. Came back round to it about 5-6 years later. And I was like, no, I'm actually equipped now. I don't think that training at a later date would have done any better for me. I think it's just that idea of, when I graduated, I was at the right table, but I was just in the wrong chair. That's all it was. I was like, I'm in the exact industry that I need to be in. This is what I love doing. It's what I feel passionate about. I ended up going off and being a camera assistant on big budget films and things like that, and learning so much about that side of things that then amplified my acting experience, my craft, and how I teach as well. So I wouldn't trade that either. I don't think I made any mistakes along the way. I just don't think that I was fully ready to go out into the industry at that point in time. So I eventually went, no, stay at this table. Just keep changing chairs until you find one that fits, till you find one that you actually go, no, this is my place at the table for now. Because hey, 2 weeks, 1 year, 5 years down the line, I could be changing, and I could be changing to a completely different table or just to another chair. And that's okay, because each person's journey is totally valid. You can, want to train for 1 year and then go out into the industry, or do what they do in the States of just going to class, like evening classes, and branch out that way. Or you can do a foundation course and then a degree and spend 4 years doing that. There is no one size fits all. It is about aligning with what you truly want to get out of your experience of training in whatever capacity that is, to fuel a career. Because it's longevity. An acting career is
Yeah.
not for Christmas. It is for life. So, you know, we know, like, as we age, our casting bracket
Mhm.
shifts and changes.
Yeah.
So we're in it for the long haul. So you
Yeah.
got to find a way of finding longevity within that.
Yeah.
Training is one component of it, and an incredibly important one in whatever way you wish for that to be. But don't start chastising yourself, thinking that, oh, well, Susie over the road here, she's doing X, Y, and Z, and Tom over here is doing
Yeah.
this, and I'm doing something else. Like, the
Yeah.
comparison thing is not going to help you.
Yeah. I often see, actually, it's really interesting now that I've been out for a long time, out as in, like, you know, I did my training a long time ago, that I see kind of the journeys, the kind of the cycles in a way that people go through. And what I noticed was that there were people that came out of drama school that we were like, oh, they're going to be a star, you know, they're going to be amazing. And now they're going back to study you know, psychology because they burnt out, or not, you know, or they're still doing it, but they're going on other paths. Like, and that, I think this is one of the things that I talk about to actors when they sort of ask me about, oh, you know, should I go do this kind of training or this kind of training? And I had someone come to me and be like, well, I'm considering training overseas and it's going to be expensive. And then with, you know, what do you think I should do in terms of making these choices? And I said, well, if you think about, like, imagine that it's going to take you 20 years to make a full-time income doing acting. You know, let's say that it takes you 20 years to make a full-time income. What would you choose with that in mind? Because it is a really long road, and it may not take
Yeah.
you that long to get to full-time income. You might also decide that you don't want to have a full-time income in acting. I think for me, I really like diversifying because it keeps me feeling really healthy. And I think that's the case for most people that I know that have that longevity. They have found other element, those different chairs they move around their what I just had a mind at the hi what's the word, multi hyphenates or
Yes.
multi potentialites, people that do many things, because that's what keeps them fresh. And I think if in doubt, I'd be saying to people, drama school is great, but with or without drama school, you have to learn to make your own work. That's the thing that I would
Yeah.
yell at
Gosh,
all
yeah.
young actors. Learn to either write or direct or produce or all of those or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or have another element that you enjoy doing, but particularly stuff that allows you to take control of what kind of stuff you're doing. Because I think that that's what often really drains people, is the lack of agency, the lack of power that they have in acting, that they're having to wait and until the phone rings. That I
Yeah.
think that in the end, drama school is so great, and it may make your path faster, your journey faster, but it also may not. You know, it
Mhm.
may be that, you know, you have a great time at drama school, but then you just don't really find your place, and then you need a little bit of other stuff to find it. And I think it can a lot of that, something we don't discuss enough, I think, is the casting type element, and how some people will have that casting type that's castable like this when they're 25, and
Yep.
some people have a casting type that's probably going to be castable when they're 35, 45,
Yep.
or 55, 65. You know, like, not everyone is castable at 25, or, you know,
Mhm.
not castable in leads at 25. I think that there's some, like, reality checks that would be nice for people to talk more about.
And it's a difficult one, especially
mm,
because there's been so much talk, rightly so, about diversity, inclusivity, and not seeing things as seeing people as one entity. When in fact, you know, broadly speaking, a lot of those things do still exist, not to the same extent that it used to, of course, but it's that idea of going, yes, you are probably capable of playing this, this, and this. Yes, you are a transformative actor and you can do all of this, this, and this. But a casting director doesn't know you. An agent doesn't know you. They're not going to take a punt on you because you're unknown. You need to be able to play somewhat of the game to get in on the ground floor in order to make your way, in order to branch out, because you're not always going to get the opportunity. You're not always going to be told, yes, you can do whatever you want. It's not going to happen. There's going to be so much experimentation that will take place in drama school, in training, where you are going to be pushing, your physicality, your vocals, your this, your that, to branch out in order to be, to play so much closer to who you are. And to see that as a restrictive thing is probably doing yourself a disservice, because although, yes, you are going to fall into a casting bracket with a ton of other people, you are still bringing a uniqueness, your own perspective, your own lived experience, your own thought process, your own imagination, all of that you're bringing, which is totally true to you and you alone. So seeing things as restrictive is only going to restrict you, really. That there's so much to garner whilst going out into the industry and playing the game, because it's a game. It's a big game.
Yeah, I think that when we stop taking it so seriously, I think things work better. I mean, I've had people, it's tough this time of year when people are submitting, and maybe they're submitting stuff and they've just had rejections and they're still having to do another round of self-tapes, and they're in the middle of that and they're having to keep their spirits up in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And I find that as a coach, I really feel like a coach, like as in like, the person on the sidelines being like, go, you can do it, because it can be so hard on people. And I think one of the things that I try to help actors with is this, taking the pressure off that. And I was talking last week when we were, having trouble with the internet. I ended up talking about like one of the things that I think helps the most, and it usually is the thing that allows people to get into drama school, is when they feel like it doesn't matter if they get in or not. It's when they're in that state of like, you know what, I would really love this training, but if I don't get in, I am going to do, like, I've got this script that I'm working on. I've been getting together with my mate, shooting these short films, all this kind of stuff. When they've got stuff happening, when they know like, well, it's not in the school's hands. It doesn't have to be a gatekeeper situation. They don't decide if I'm an actor or not. I decide, and I'm going to do this no matter what. And so this could be a useful thing, and I'd love to have this as part of my experience, but also they're not going to stop me. It's not I'm not going to die if I don't get in it. And that's when I see people get in.
Yeah.
Do you notice that?
Absolutely. Yes, no, it's exactly the same thing. You also find it when people are trying to pass their driving test. If they think that they've failed within the first minute, the likelihood is they're going to drive the best that they've ever driven, because you have to complete the test before you find out that you failed. And once you know that the pressure is off and you're like, okay, I now have ownership over this, I'm not at the mercy of your judgment, then you allow yourself to just be human. But what it is, it's two things that I usually say, or encourage my coaching clients to really think about, is one, your value is not linked to success, regardless whether you get the thing or you don't get the thing, whether you get the recall, you get the place, you get, a good review, you get 5 stars, whatever.
Does not define you.
It is not linked. And that goes for positive and for negative.
Yeah.
So if you get accepted to drama school, that is not an advocation of yes, I am worthy. It's not. Same goes for if you get a no email from them. It's not linked to your worth as a person. And it's so tough being an actor, because you are the commodity, you are it. So if you get rejected, then you get rejected.
Feels personal.
But it's actually separating those things out. There's the actor and there's the person. The rejection is not for you. It's not you. It is, if anything, it is no, not this time. No, not this year.
Yeah.
But come back again, And also to see a rejection or see failure as data. It is an opportunity for you to actually go, okay, where can I be improving here? Because I could quite easily do a little woe is me moment, rest in this whole kind of learned helplessness, victimhood mentality of life is so tough. They're, you know, the glass ceiling, I'm not being accepted. They need to change. It's all about them.
Yeah.
When in fact, turn it back around onto yourself. What could you be doing? How can you take the power back? How can you not be at the mercy of people and actually take ownership over your own growth, your own learning? Because if training is what you want, then how are you going to get there? Because you've got to know that's a temporary no. And much like we do when we have an objective and we're playing tactics, if the tactic doesn't work, you need to change it. Because if you're repeating the pattern over and over and over again and expecting a different result, you're never going to get it.
And I feel like
It's
no, go ahead.
go for it. It's the same when you see people using the same material each and every year. They're like, oh, I'm doing you know, I'm doing Edmund from King Lear again. I'm like, why?
Why are you doing
Do
that?
something else.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I've had this discussion with students where they've been like, oh, I'm thinking maybe I'll do the same one again to show them that like I've grown. And I'm like, well, they're not gonna remember you that
Grow by
much.
finding some new material.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think something I think that perhaps people don't quite grasp is like how just immense, like the sheer quantity of things that they'll be watching, that it's like they're not going to remember that you did. They're probably not going to remember that you did how you did Edmund. You know, they might see you again and be like, I think they did that last time, but they're not going to be like, oh yes, they did that last time, but look, oh, they're much better this time. They're probably just going to be like,
Exactly.
why?
It's been a
Oh.
year. If
Yeah.
anything, if they do remember that you've done that speech before, the assumption that they're going to make is, well, they've not done any research in the past year. They've not read any more plays. They've not found any more material. They've not gone to the theatre. They've not looked elsewhere. They're using the same material and they're going to see that as laziness.
This is why I think I'm quite cautious about speeches that are kind of very popular, because I think it's such an interesting thing to talk about, like monologue selection, right? Because I mean, especially in Shakespeare, we've got a set number. With contemporary, there's oodles and oodles.
So much scope.
And I mean, I still think with classical, there's quite a lot more than people think. And that's why I kind of go, look, if it's in the kind of even top 10 to 20 monologues, you can do it, but you're really going to have to knock it out of the park. But also, if it's in the top, you know, in the big 4 to 5 Shakespeares that everybody studies in high school, the chances are that they're just going to think you don't know any other plays. And I think that that's one of the things that, like you say, it reads as laziness when you're doing monologues that are really very popular. It just reads as, I only know these. And it's sort of sad in a way, because there are lots of really wonderful, very popular monologues, but I just think there's also quite a lot of middle ground of monologues that aren't that well known, or maybe they're done maybe reasonably often, but not like everybody's doing this. So there are some that I'll be like, just don't do this, because it's just they're just going to go, oh, you only know A Midsummer Night's Dream, and that's all you know, and you just couldn't be bothered reading another. And sometimes I get comments like that on my YouTube being like, oh, thanks, I didn't really want to have to read a whole Shakespeare play. And I'm like, well, how are you going to be an actor if you can't get through that? And it's not, I know it's really hard, and I'm not saying it's easy. And even with the contemporary stuff, people are like, well, I'm reading buckets of plays and I just can't find it. You know, I can't find something that I'm excited about. I mean,
whenever I'm confronted with that, I'm reading buckets of plays and I can't find something that I'm excited about. I go, oh, wow, okay. That's kind of worrying. You should be like getting passionate and finding, like, have an imaginative kind of reaction to not just to because I mean, text is our currency. As actors, text is our currency. But you should be getting inspired on a daily basis. Music, people watching, art, TV, film, theater, dance, all like you should be looking at things and absorbing things, going to museums. Like I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and morbid as it was, I went to the 9/11 memorial museum, and you had videos and kind of paintings and sculptures and pictures and things to read and things to listen to, and you were just like, this is like an all-encompassing stimulus, like inspiring experience, because there's so much going on that if you are saying that you are an actor and you are wanting to invest yourself fully in the currency of text, and you have read loads of plays and you can't find anything that you're passionate about, I'm going to turn the question back round and say, is acting for you? Because if you can't get zhuzhed up by at least one monologue or see imaginative, creative possibility with it, that's a bit worrying.
I think part of it is people getting really drained by the process. And partly, actually, this is something that I think people can take away as a practical thing, is that they're trying to cram it when it's getting too close to the deadline, and they're reading all these plays, and I think, or they're reading like monologue collections. And personally, I think, kind of reading a lot of monologues, they all start to sound the same in your head after, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm reading it and I'm like, in my head, I'm hearing kind of the same voice talking, and it's going blah 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 blah, blah, and I'm like, ugh. And I think part of that is we're not thinking long term. So I think that that's one thing that people can think about, is like, think long term. And even if you are, even if you're in the middle of it right now, but let's think it's like, think like you're going to use these monologues for auditions for theatre productions, and you need a couple that are in your casting type, like, think like that. Think like you're already an actor. Look for, and even I think sometimes we're kind of stabbing in the dark, that people are maybe reading a bunch of stuff without necessarily being excited about, say, the playwright or the style or the material, but in fact that we could be starting from a different place and going, what kind of playwright do I like? What kind of style? And like, read that first instead of subjecting yourself to like random stuff. And especially if they haven't seen it live or online. I think that's the other thing I would say to people, is like, watch things like National Theatre at Home, for example, if you're in the UK, National Theatre at Home, but also for the US, even for the US, National Theatre at Home, but Broadway HD or whatever you can find. There's a lot more stuff online now.
Monobox as well.
Yeah. Oh, I think
Monobox would be really good.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's so many things online now that I think can get you really excited about just articulating what kinds of plays you might actually like to read, and going through that process. And if in doubt, kind of Googling what like playwrights similar to blah blah, and then and going down that path and being practical about it instead of like grinding through it. That I think what I'd love to hear from you is like, we talked about, I want to hear what you think people make mistakes, like sorry, that was very badly phrased, the mistakes that you think people make in this process, either in the room or even like early on, like this, like maybe it's the monologues that they're choosing, or like, where do you think people are kind of like, oh, smack my head, please don't do that? Where do you what do you get stuck on that you would rant about?
There's lots of things
So
that
things.
I see, and a lot of them are actually quite quick fixes or mindset shifts that need to be made. So the first big mistake that and I drill it into people as best I can, is seeing yourself as at the mercy, going in with the attitude that you are not worthy of being there. So you rush through it and you apologize your way through it. Or on the flip side of playing the arrogance card, the cocky card, because the common myth that, oh well, the top theater schools, they want that kind of you need to own the space and own the room, and that's the thing that they're going to like, teetering on the edge of feeling so unworthy or overly cocky. And it's a status game.
So I was going to throw in
if
this.
you think about yourself and then the panel, if you are playing they are much higher status than me, then it is going to be, I'm so sorry, please, 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 please. And if you're playing the cocky card, then it's a case of, you should be so lucky to have me. When in fact, what it is, it's equality. You're going in to collaborate. It is, they have a problem. They have a cohort of 30 to fill. Like, they've got 30 spaces that are left open right now, and they need a solution to that problem, and you are it. You're actually doing them a favor by coming in, and they're doing you a favor by giving you a platform to do your thing. Like, it's an equal exchange that you are both there to do. Much like a rehearsal room, you go in as equals to investigate, to explore, and to create together. That is the thing that, as an audition panel member, when I get somebody coming in the room going, right, okay, let's explore, let's do some redirection, what do you think? And like, things like turning the interview into a conversation rather than a test. Like, you're like, oh, okay, you're taking up the space in a way that feels equal, it feels open, it feels collaborative. And if you're able to collaborate with us, you're going to be able to collaborate with 25 or 30 other people in your cohort. People are going to want to work with you. They don't want to work with you if you are like kind of weeping in the corner and shaking like a whippet that's been left out in the rain for too long. And same if you are thinking that you're the best thing since sliced bread. Nobody wants to work with those people. They're going to want to work with the people who are there to collaborate, who see everybody as equals, that you are there to actually venture out into a common goal. That's the thing that we get fired up by. So I think a lot of the time people have this misconception that auditions are tests, when they're not. They're an opportunity to go in and collaborate with equal, fair-minded people.
I think that's one of the things I often say to people is, like, think of it like a rehearsal where you've already got the gig and the director trusts you and you trust the director, and that you're there to work together to get to an outcome. And I think that's exactly right. It's not a test. And I think that's so empowering when people can make that mindset shift of just like, there is an element of, are you at the right skill level? But that's not the only thing they're looking at. It's also about, like, do you have the kind of interest, like we talked about, but also, like, are you going to fit with other people? But the biggest thing I think is that, like, are you ready to train? I talk about, like, readiness of, like, it is that state of openness, and it's being able to actually listen. And I think that that's something, I mean, maybe we can talk about redirection actually, because I think this is something where people go wrong with redirection, that they think it's like, they want me to do a thing. What is the thing you want me to do? And they're freaking out about it. Whereas actually quite a lot of it is just like, well, how open are you? Are you open, or are you frozen? Like, are you like stuck in patterns, or are you frozen in fear? Or are you actually able to listen to what I'm saying and try something new? And half the time, I think the panel is not looking for, like, sometimes they might be, if they're looking for a technical thing that maybe they want to just see what you can do. Or if you did 2 monologues that were like basically the same and they just want to see you like do something different. Sometimes it's that. But I think often it's just like, well, let's just see if you're flexible, because that's when I'll be able to see if you're going to die in the rehearsal room because you panic under pressure and you are judging yourself, or you're massively confused, or you have no understanding of the kind of language that you're going to need to know in order to make this, or like awareness, that technical awareness of, like, can you do this thing, and you have no idea. Because sometimes it blows my mind how often with redirects, actors will do it actually pretty much the same. Do you see that a lot? You go like, do this, and I've said to people, like, the only way you can fail a redirect is to do it the same. That's basically the only way you can fail a redirect. Just basically, do it the opposite, do it completely different, and you'll be fine. So a lot of talking, but yes, go.
I think that's why drama schools insist on redirection at an earlier stage. It's usually either in the first round if you're doing in person, or on Zoom or something like that. They might give one little note to get you to shift, or they'll do it in round 2. But in order to get through to round 3, you got to nail the redirect. And they do that in order to test 2 things. Well, actually, to test mostly 2 things. They want to test your composure, how well you can actually cope under pressure, and the stress of doing something new. They're looking about your flexibility. How able are you to adapt and be flexible in that moment? And they're wanting to test how creative and imaginative you are, to be able to do that. And also that element of being able to listen, absorb what's being given to you. The amount of times I've sat on audition panels and you're like, okay, great, so we're going to change it up, and you just get people that are like, nothing's going in, nothing. They're just going, how the heck am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And that is the only, if they actually took that dialogue away and actually went, okay, you're asking me to do this. What is it that you're asking me to do? Okay. Why are they asking? Okay, interesting. Right. Okay, how am I going to do this? And not overthink it and just go, great, let's see what happens. Let's explore, because that's what they're asking me to do. They're asking me to explore and try something. And if you've got actors that are coming in and they're so fearful of trying something new for fear of looking like a fool, that's a big red flag, because a lot of actor training is you looking like a fool, because you fail and you fail forward and it's a safe space and you have to explore, but you're going to look foolish a lot of the time. You got to get comfortable with the fact that that's incredibly uncomfortable. Or if they're just not shifting because they don't understand, that they don't have that knowledge of the language and the jargon. They don't have that literacy at this stage, which will signal that, okay, you're not quite ready for training yet. The fundamental idea of leading with emotion as opposed to intention. Rarely will the drama schools ask you to just play something angry. Like, they're usually wanting you to actually work to affect somebody in a particular way, because they don't want you to play the outcome, they want you to play the action. So if you are just kind of leading with emotion and that's all you're capable of doing, then the likelihood is you're not going to get any further forward. It's about really thinking about it on a human level and working to affect the other person with the redirect. So yeah, and I mean, if you were only capable of doing it in one way, if you're just a kind of one-trick pony, then it's sadly a big red flag, because you have to be able to shift. A lot of the time when you prepare for a drama school audition, you've got so much time to prepare, and you can prepare it to the extent that it looks so polished and so lived in, that you almost kind of go, oh yeah, I'm totally swayed by that. But then when you actually break it apart and pick it, you find that it's kind of hollow, because there's no foundation under it. There's no ability to shift and change it. It can be done one way and one way only. There's intonation patterns that people find really difficult to shift from. They haven't they've lost all account of the meaning of what they're saying, so they can't apply it to a new context, all of that kind of stuff. And you can, and redirection is a really quick fire way of exposing those things.
Yeah, it shows a lot, doesn't it? And I think that's why I'm so like gung-ho about, I call it freedom work, but it's just anything that kind of breaks you out of those patterns and gets you out of your head. I always feel like that's that last stage that we should all kind of be doing, that I think sometimes we forget to do when we're working on a monologue. We think about the kind of getting it right process, and we're kind of like, I do the work until I get it right consistently, and then I'm done, whereas actually really it's kind of like, you do the work, you do the exploration, and then you probably do get it to a stage where it's working in one particular way consistently and you feel like it's effective. And then the next stage is, what else can I find? How else can I do it so I'm not stuck? Because I think that sometimes, I think what people really, if they've never learnt to do it that way, because I've noticed sometimes, depending, it can be a cultural thing as well in some places where there's this focus on kind of perfect performance rather than this sort of
Mm.
lived in and responsive performance that people, or otherwise actors are kind of newer and they don't realize that it is important to be responsive, that people are
Mm.
focused on these kind of getting it right mentality. And even sometimes I think that's just through fear, is this idea that there is a right version and that the
Yeah.
work is to get to the right version and then vomit it up every time and ta-da, here it is. And actually, like,
Yep.
I really loved what you were saying about emotion, because I think that this is a really big area that I think is something that most beginner actors need to look at, which is that they think that acting is about producing a particular emotion at a particular intensity at a particular time, and that
Yep.
over time they realize, oh, that's not what the job is. And I think that that's one of the biggest flags with actors in drama school auditions, when it's like they're just shooting emotion at you and you go, there's no journey there, there are no beats, there's no thought. A lot of the time there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's just, here are my feelings, are my feelings good enough? And actually we're not
Yeah.
really that interested in feelings. And
Yeah.
that's kind of my, like, you know, hardcore truth bombs. And we don't care about your feelings, just
Yeah.
stop with the feelings.
But we don't. That's the thing. We don't.
Mm.
We care about what you're doing. And it's through no fault of their own, because if you read any novel, it is always bit of dialogue, and then it's, you know, Sarah said angrily. That's the
Yeah,
description.
right.
That's what we have to go off of. So we go, okay, well, I'm going to say this angrily.
Yeah.
That's rah. And
Thanks,
you go, okay, well,
writers.
that's, you know, it has the flavor and the sound and the effect of anger. It's not coming from anywhere because there is an action
Yeah.
involved with that. But the novels don't say, you know, Sarah was trying to do this, this, and this to so and so. It is just
Came out angry.
the end result of what is perceived as anger. And a lot of the time, when people are leading with that level of emotion, all they're doing is work that is on the outside looking in. They're looking at it from the audience's or the panel's perspective, as opposed to creating the
Yeah.
scaffolding of thought from the character's perspective. Because the character, like, have you ever had those occasions where you'd be in the middle of an argument with someone and they're like, calm down, you're being hysterical. And you're like, I'm not being hysterical, I'm making a point. They see emotion, you see the intention. Emotion is the byproduct of you working to affect somebody.
Yeah. Yes.
Emotion is static. It's static and it's passive. It actually has to be, it is just this like cannonball that it won't do anything by itself. You actually need to load it into the cannon in order to shoot it. It won't do it by itself. And it comes as a bonus of you doing something. Like, you're gonna get the explosion if you actually load up some gunpowder and set it on fire. It doesn't, it's otherwise it is just a ball that does nothing. And it weighs you down. And it becomes very self-absorbed. So by making it all about the other person, you're actually propelling the momentum of the speech, the situation forward. And what you'll do is you'll suspend that reality to such an extent, like, because it's not truth. We keep talking about, oh, we need truth and this, it's truth. It's not. Because the thing is, I can stand on stage, or I can go on stage, get down on all fours, say I'm a table, and you gotta believe me. That's truth. There's truth in a suspended reality. So how can we bring ourselves to that truth in a suspended reality? And it's by playing intention, because if we can play intention, we can actually trick our brain into believing that that is truthful. And what comes of that is emotion.
Yeah, that's it. And I think in the context of the drama school stuff, it's, for me, I'm always like, what is the journey? What is the shift from A to B to C all the way to Z? Where are they going? Because I think most people really don't, they may come at it from, I think a lot of people think they're coming at it from a character perspective. I think that's the part of the problem, is that they're going, well, I'm not focusing on emotion. No, I'm in the character. I'm doing what the character is going through. I'm doing the character's experience. Right. But like, where are they trying to go, and where did they start, where did they end
Yeah.
up? And that's why I'm like, you know, script analysis, like I was gonna say Nazi, but not Nazi, but just, you know, like you need to learn how to identify a journey that a character is going on, whether it's in a monologue or a
Yes.
scene or a whole production. You have to
Yeah.
understand that stuff, and then how do I then bring it into the body in a way that's not just about the feelings. It's not just about here's some feelings, because it's amazing how often I think people just don't understand that that is what they're doing. And it's such, I mean, and that's why I think it is so important that people are going to class, or even, and I think there is a bit of an expectation now, if you're going to apply to those really top level drama schools, that you will need to have done some sort of work, some sort of experience, or had some sort of feedback, I think is the thing. Because I understand that not everyone can work with coaches, right? Because it can be difficult financially, but we need to be going to class, or we need to have a mentor or a director that can give us really specific feedback, or any of those things. Because even with actors that are quite experienced, I feel like I will work on something with them and they'll be like, oh, I didn't realize I've been doing this the whole time, you know. Of
Yeah,
course
exactly.
it's a long
But the thing, do you know
process.
what? I fall victim of that as an actor, because
Yeah,
as the director or as the coach, you have the full scope of, you see the
yeah,
big picture. As
of
the
course.
actor, it can be
Yeah.
really, really difficult to see the wood for the trees on it.
Yeah,
So actually working
exactly.
with somebody in order to be able to kind of find that clarity is really, really important. But no, you don't have to, if work with a dedicated mentor. The idea of, like you said, make your own stuff, experiment, create your own theatre, school plays, amateur dramatics, theatre societies, writing clubs, debate society, like get
Yeah,
as much
yeah,
experience as you possibly can about being in front of people and producing a product. Like that's what it is at the end of the day. Theater is something happening with people watching.
yeah.
That's it.
Instant
So the more
feedback.
and more, exactly, instant feedback. So you've got to be putting yourself in that realm, because if a drama school reads your personal statement or gets you into an interview and they're like, oh cool, so how did you come to this conclusion that this is what you wanted to do? And they're like, oh, I don't, I only ever studied maths and the sciences at school, and I just kind of thought that this would be a fun thing to do. Like,
Yeah, but it would be fun.
so you've got no other experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we're not looking for you to kind of have gone off and done like a ton of stuff, but something that
Make sure you actually
you,
know that you like it.
yeah, do you know that you like this?
Yeah.
It's like, imagine going to like some investors with a brand new idea
Yeah.
for an app or something like that, for I don't know, for like traveling, like gap year traveling, and you've got this pitch and stuff like that, and they're like, great, okay, so what's your experience? You're like, I've never been on a gap year myself.
Yeah.
And you're like, what,
How do you
why?
know? Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? I remember people being like that actually when I went to get my teaching qualification, and it was a really intense study period. And there were people there that were like, because I've been working in like after school programs and that kind of thing for a long time. And there were people there that were like, oh, I just want to shift from my current career and I feel like it'll be good. And I'm like, this is a hard job. Teaching people is hard. You want to know that you like it before you go through like an intense couple of years of study.
Yeah.
I think people have to really sort of take that on board. And
Yeah.
also, just while we're talking about all this stuff, let us know if you've got questions for us, because we'll start to wrap up soon, because we're having a grand old time talking about lots of things. But let us know if you've got questions. Whether it's now, if you're live with us, or in the future, you can drop us comments in the future as well, and one of us will get back to you with some thoughts on this. But it's such a big topic. We could talk forever. But Louise, before we wrap up, are there things you want to, like burning things that you're like, please everyone, you must know this if you're about to go through drama school auditions, or even like some of the stuff that we've given them, is really big picture stuff. So maybe for people that, maybe if they're thinking, you know, this round didn't go well, I'm going to audition again in a year. What could they do in this year coming up that could really help them? Maybe what
Oh, I
something they
love
could do
this
in a year,
question.
and or maybe we need to address like what could they do in a whole year, but also for people that are like, I also have one submission next week. What can I do in a week? Maybe we can do like a week and a year.
Excellent. So if you've got an audition coming up, then like pay attention to, I mean, anything from logistics, like figure out where you need to be, when you need to be, and what they're actually asking for. Give some thought about why they're asking for it, because you'll get some schools that are like, okay, we want a contemporary and a classical piece. And you're like, okay, well, let's analyze why they're asking for those two different things. Why are they asking for a contemporary? And why are they asking for a classical? What components of those two things that are completely different? If they're asking for a song, again, it's different. Why are they asking for that? Asking you to prepare a monologue or a devised piece or come in and do an improv workshop or whatever. Give some thought about, if you were on the audition panel, what will you be looking for in terms of like what things do you want to be want to see exhibited through these different things, and give some thought to that and then apply that to your work. Don't let it go stale. Try it lots of different ways. Don't be precious about the way in which you are going about this. Yes, you maintain the integrity of the creative choices that you are making, but know that you can shift and change those things on a dime, and that is a gift. It is good to be able to find different ways of producing it. Probably my top tip is find your trigger. What is the thing that forces you to speak so that you're not bleeding into the speech? What is the previous circumstance? What has happened? And I mean immediately before you begin speaking. What is the thought that comes in? What is the question that is asked? Who walks through the door? What is happening so that you can actually get into that zone when the audition panel says, great, yeah, okay, whenever you're ready, take your time, begin. The whenever you're ready, the take your time, that is the little few seconds for you to actually chime into what is the trigger? What is the thing that is making me speak? You find it and you commit to it 100% so that you're hitting the ground running instead of just bleeding into the speech and getting up to speed roughly 2 or 3 lines in, because they might switch off by then.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I think, like, to add on to that, I would say I noticed that most actors have not done enough work at the scene level to get to know the given circumstances. They know the play, they know the monologue, but they have not looked at the scene enough, and the scene is gold. So I would say for the people that have got their submission in a week, revisit the scene and get a buddy to do the other parts for you, or part, and look at some of that stuff. So you've got that trigger like you were talking about. And I would add, breathe. Yeah, like when you're talking about the trigger and the bleed, I feel like because I'm quite technical and I'm very sort of physical with the way I approach things. So I'd be like, you're not flipping breathing. Like, so many people are bleeding into it because they're just not even breathing. They're kind of like, where are my feelings? Blah, blah, blah.
Yes,
And I'm like,
feelings.
it's a big moment right now. So you need to take a nice big breath and be ready to speak, and like get used to breathing before you speak, and not like, and like a decent breath. But I think that's a whole thing as well, because it sometimes takes us a long time to realize what a lovely supported breath feels like. Yes, but yes, I love those tips. So let's think about the year. So for the people that are like, I'm not ready yet, or I've had a bumpy submission round this time and I will submit again in a year, what do you reckon they could be doing to?
Yeah, if they've had a kind of unsuccessful run of it this year, don't be discouraged. I mean, I could be absolutely lying, but this is the thing that I keep saying, because I believe I read it somewhere. I think it took Judi Dench 7 years in a row to get into drama school.
I was gonna say, I thought I had a book over there, but it's in the other room. But yeah, I think she did have a couple of goes at it. And I think the average is like, I think the average is 3, or I mean, I could be wrong. I think I'm probably making that up, but I reckon I reckon the average would be about 3 at least.
Absolutely. And there are so many different components to why you don't get in. And it's not
Yeah,
just you're no good. It's not that
yeah,
necessarily. We've talked about the idea of you're not quite ready yet. A
yeah,
lot of the time, drama schools take age into account. You know, the likelihood
yeah,
is they're not taking 17, 18-year-olds. They're wanting you to have a little bit more
yeah,
grounding and a little bit more lived experience of the world that you can bring into your actor training and your actor's process. Like, don't be discouraged if you get to know. Analyze that as data. What is it that I did well that I want to maintain for next year? And what is it that I actually need to pick up? What is it that, ask for feedback. Not all drama schools will give it, but ask for it at the very least. And do some investigative work on yourself and figure out, okay, what is it that's potentially holding me back here? Over the course of the year, you're going to want to give yourself a break. Like, don't try hammering it all home. Because if you stay so fixated and focused, you will work yourself into a rut. Give yourself some time off. Spend time with people. Do things that are outside of acting so that you can actually figure out whether that is the thing that you really, really want to do, or is it just the fact that you've got nothing else, you know? Spend time branching out your experience. Find new material. Like, don't rehash the same material, because even, and I'm not a spiritual person in any way, shape, or form, but if you have material that wasn't working for you one year, it's going to carry some bad juju. Come on, like, it's got bad energy in it. Get rid of
yeah,
it. It's not the one. Find something new.
yeah,
Like, there's so much out there. Find new stuff and have a fresh new start to it. Get involved in some kind of project, like whether that is you are making some of your own work, do extra work, like do supporting artist work on TV and film, and get out on a film set. Like, go and get involved in amateur dramatics, write a
yeah,
play, like do something that is creative, that keeps you involved in that world, and gives you a little bit of perspective. And do some research. Like,
yeah,
all these things that we were saying about what schools to go for don't have to apply to the same schools each and every time. And if you just go into that autopilot, of just going, okay, well, I applied to RADA last year, I'm going to apply to RADA again. Like, think about
yeah,
what is it that you actually want, because you're going to change over the course of a year. What is it that you actually want to get out of training?
yeah,
And then reapply that to the research that you were going to do again, because syllabuses change, teaching staff change, ethos changes,
yeah.
intention within training changes. You gotta make sure that you're still realigning with each and every school that you're applying for.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so, yes, just salute all of that. I think just, yeah, I really want to double down on that, like particularly the like fill your cup. Like, I think that's such a big thing as artists, is like, do you know what actually you enjoy artistically in terms of just
Yeah,
in the world, not necessarily even in the theater, but like for me, like learning, like having playlists full of songs that make me feel things, and realizing that I love to do, I'm really rubbish at visual arts, but I love doing it because I am rubbish at it, and I'm never going to be like, actually it frees me to be creative and just be like, oh, I'm
mm,
terrible at these watercolors and I love it, like, because there's no pressure to be like, I have to be really good at this, the pressure's off, and it just makes me feel so happy and creative and like a kid, and I feel like that, knowing yourself, knowing that element of yourself, like and even your values, like what is it that you really value about,
yeah.
why do you want to be an artist, like why do
Mm,
you want to be an actor, and why do you think it's important in the world? Like, start asking yourself those questions, because at some point it will be hard, and it may be hard
yeah,
now, or it may be when you're training or after you're training, or it
yeah,
may be all of those times will be hard, but
yeah,
when the going gets rough, when you understand your why, I think that's so important.
yeah.
And to find your people, and especially
Oh
if
yeah.
you're kind of having trouble, if you feel like drama school may not work out for you, then having a person that you just having people that you want to make work with. I think it can be really hard. It can be really isolating. I think this kind of work, you can sometimes feel alone, but we have to do it together. So be vulnerable and make connections and go to a class. Even I feel like do this stuff even if you think it's not going to be good. Like go to a class even if you think the class is not going to be that great and you're not going to learn anything. Go and do amateur dramatics even if you think, oh, kind of a bit beyond that now. Just do it anyway, so you've got people and practice and you're living the life, and like treat yourself like a professional artist every day. And that's hard, because that's ultimately, I think, what the job is. After you finish drama school, it will be a big void of time where you'll be like, what do I do with my time? And you need to know, this is what I want to do and this is how I use my time. I watch these movies because they make me feel good, and I listen to this music, and I talk to these people, and I, hire out rehearsal spaces or whatever, all those things, just to, this is who I am and this is what I do, that stuff. So, oh my goodness, there's so many things. We could talk forever about all this stuff, because there's I was like, oh yeah, there was other things we were going to talk about as well, but oh my goodness, and maybe we need to do this, like, as we're next year, as we head into the drama school season next year, we'll do like a pre-season, like a game plan for everyone.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
So tell us about where we can find you, and if people want to work with you, tell us, give us a bit about you as a coach, and where we can find you on the socials and all that stuff and things you've got coming.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I help actors who are auditioning for drama school and professional actors who have kind of had their confidence knocked. There's loads and loads of things that a coach can help you with, and I find a lot of joy and satisfaction out of doing that. So if you are one of those people, you can find me on Instagram. So that is LMC Coaching. Same on YouTube. I do weekly YouTube videos, so a little bit more kind of long form, where I can go into points that I'm raising within Instagram and just kind of really nail that home a lot more. You can sign up for my weekly newsletters on my website, which is lmccoach.com. I also have a workshop coming up on Friday, the 15th of March, and it's going to be at 6 p.m., which is UK time, and it's recall ready workshop. So we're going to be working on redirection, keeping your pieces really fresh and energized, talking about how to prepare for interviews and how to execute that. And then a big kind of Q&A, pick my brain as an audition panel member for anybody who's auditioning for drama schools and they've got a recall coming up, because the closer and closer you get to getting the thing that you want, you find that the more and more you start to doubt yourself. And it's just to kind of keep you on the straight and narrow, keep you, aligned with the creative integrity that you're working on, and being flexible and rolling with the punches as you go through it.
That's so great. I really think it helps people a lot to have that kind of mock situation, or people that they can bounce off before you go into that. I think it's really, really helpful. So
yeah,
thank you very much for joining us. And I'm just checking in case there's any last questions that I've missed on the Facebook group. But while I do that, I will just let you guys know out there, for those that know me, we have Shakespeare Mastery Academy open for March intake for the next 12 18 hours maybe, and that's my weekly classes that I run that are Shakespeare focused, but very much bigger picture, in that we use Shakespeare text, but I teach very practical things. I'm very practical about the way I teach. So last week we actually did a class about that, kind of get it out of your head, focus on the other person, all that kind of stuff, and getting in the body, getting connected to text, redirection. So that's kind of my very, very practical approach to things. We have a few more, we have not that many hours available to sign up, and then it's going to close until June because we don't have the doors open all the time. But if you're watching this in the future, I'm going to have some little tasting plates available soon that you'll be able to jump into as a taster of how I teach, and in case you want to get yourself really Shakespeare ready for drama school auditions or for whatever you're working on. So Louise and I are around to support you guys in your journey. So drop us comments or let us know what you need and what you think. And we all keep in touch. I'll put all the details in the description for those that are watching on YouTube in the future. That will all be there for you below. And thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you guys again another time, maybe next year. For drama school auditions. All right, signing off. I'll see you guys again in the future. Bye.
Bye.